Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Akron Public Schools Policy Meeting this May 27th of 2021. Thanks for everyone who was present on the call and for the meeting and present from home. We will start the meeting with starting with our meeting minutes. Any question on the meeting minutes from our last meeting? Any questions or concern with meeting minutes? Okay, if there's nothing with the questioning of the meeting minutes, we'll move to our next order of business is retirement for Mrs. Perkins and her replacement. Dr. James?
Yes, Mr. Alexander. First, I think we all would like to congratulate Mary Perkins, who's worked in the legal office for quite some time, who will be retiring at the end of June. And we will work with current legal counsel and HR on, our plans for a replacement. But we really like to thank Mary Perkins for her years of service. And I know staff is planning a final send-off at the end of June for her.
And then Diana and I wanted to jump in if that was okay, Bruce.
Yes, go ahead, please.
And again, special thanks to Mary and her years of service. We just visited the office upstairs a few times today, and she was going through records back to the early 1900s to get her desk in order before handing it off. So she was taking all of that very, very seriously. So we really appreciate her help and support over the years. So the handoff that Superintendent James just made about maybe starting to identify her replacement, engaging HR in that process. A few things that we want to look to big picture during that handoff is currently we house contracts in the district in multiple offices. So we handle contracts out of the legal department, we handle them out of HR, business services, and finance office. And I'm sure there's probably a couple others. With the global pandemic, the use of software, cloud-based software, we definitely want to leverage the use of that in cataloging. So along with that, and I think the next item that's on the agenda with the records request software, Diana, Superintendent James, myself, Christine Fowler, Mac, and her onboarding will start to identify, I don't know, maybe a loosely termed RFQ, so to speak, but definitely an exploration of those services where we can electronically file, cycle through, distribute, and track. Because right now, when a public records request comes in, it gets coordinated to the various departments, much like we do with legal and policy distribution. So I think there's a good room for improvement on those processes, really for the safety and security of those documents. So that's what I wanted to kind of add my 2 cents in on and see if, Diana, you have anything else or from your research.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Pendleton. So I think from the legal perspective, I think it would be helpful to either better utilize the software we already have or explore, finding some software where we can, like Ryan said, on the one hand, just keep our contracts all in one central location, which will help with responding to public records requests, because often requests are made for contracts. And then also just a better way to maintain, track, and monitor the public records requests we get. We have a process for that now, but it's kind of fragmented. When a request comes in, we keep it in a log, we make sure we respond in a timely manner, but it does require a lot of coordination between departments and things like that. And then oftentimes, we do our best to keep track and record of everything that we send out in response to a public records request. But sometimes those documents are they're very voluminous, and it can be a lot to keep a good record of them. but it's important to have those records because sometimes we get repeat requests or, a legal issue comes up and we go, hey, I think someone made a public records request about that. I wonder where those documents are. So just having a more streamlined system where we can better track and monitor things, I think would be helpful for, being efficient and responding to things quicker.
So we'll take that information, Mr. Alexander, Mrs. McKittrick, as you think about potential questions there. We'll take that information, build that up into the process, the search process, the job description, and ultimately the onboarding of Mary's replacement. Definitely want to engage Christine Fowler-Mack in that process. So we'll want to make sure with Ms. Vital that we don't, have any lapse during the summer months and those kind of things. So we're in the process of drawing up a job description and, potentially revising that if necessary. But any questions with those two?
I don't have any questions. Go ahead, Ms. McKittrick.
Nope, none here.
Okay. I don't have any questions. I do have a comment. I'm glad that we're going to streamline what we're doing there. Mrs. Perkins has done a very good job over the years managing all that stuff, manually and not having a lot of it computerized and using the technology and systems that we have now. We want to thank her for being able to do a good job and getting keeping that house in order up there for our policy. So wish her well in her retirement and congratulations as well. Any other questions or comments in this section? Okay, if none, we'll move to records request software. Ms. Vital?
Oh, we just covered that, Mr. Alexander.
Oh, so you got that all in one, so we don't have to worry about it.
We tricked you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, you guys moved quick on that one, so thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, we'll move next to Neola Updates.
All right, on the Neola updates, did you want to take that, Superintendent James? Go ahead.
Sure, thank you. On the Neola updates, there were 6 of them during the pandemic, and each of those will be shared with senior staff during our summer review next week. And so there was volume 39, number 2, which contains 11 policies and 1 administrative guideline. Another one contains non-discrimination, anti-harassment policies that has 11 policies to review. The Edgar revisions contains 4 policy revisions. Those are typically regarding the U.S. Department of Education. And then there was a special update in March, diabetes care overview that we'll need to review. It's a policy and an administrative guideline. And then there were, so those are the 4. And then the other 2 were special releases, one on the graduation requirements, which we already adopted on April 26th. And then another special release, annual notices and reminders and student handbook, but that was really for information only. There were no policies and updates for that release. And in the documents, you can see a more detailed description for each of those.
May I ask a quick question? This is my first of these meetings, so when we get these Neola updates, what are we required to do with them?
So when Neola is the service that we use to review those policies, and then when revisions are required because of changes in law, either state or federal, we get an update from Neola, and then it's the responsibility of us to introduce those, of course, here at this committee, and then staff will do a deep dive into what those policies mean, and then make recommendations to this committee for, any ultimate changes.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. McKittrick, I would also add that we've refined this process since all of our policies per board policy take 3 readings to get passed. So we like to do a quick introduction here. We do a first reading at a board level. We do And prior to that, like as Superintendent James mentioned, we get it out to senior staff to review. We do first reading at a board meeting, then we do a review and edit at potentially a legal and policy meeting if and when needed. Then we do the third reading back at the board level so that it gets 3 full readings and proper vetting through all the administrative staff.
Okay, thanks.
And Ms. McKittrick, so that you know, we'd like to make sure all the board members have an opportunity to read the policies that come out. So in that process, board members will be getting policies to read and give their input if they have any questions, comments, or concerns to give, and they can do that. And we can talk about it in our meeting if we need to talk about them in our meetings or before then.
Thanks, Mr. Alexander.
You're quite welcome. Okay, we're moving really quick here. So we have next is those are the policies. As you can see that just because we didn't have a meeting or meetings for a couple months, that there's a lot that's still going on behind the scenes and a lot that has to go on before we even have an opportunity to have the meeting or bring them to the policy committee to begin the process. So there's been a lot of work. I want to thank the Dr. James, Mr. Pendleton, Mrs. Fido, and all the Akron Public School members who have been involved with this process for getting this taken care of for us. Okay, any questions on any of that from anyone else? Okay, well, the last thing I think we have is we have 2 policies that will be coming up for the first reading in our next board meeting, and that is policy 6144 investments and policy 6152.01 waiver of school fees for instruction materials. So those policies will be sent out to board members to have an opportunity to look at and read, and then be able to provide any comments or corrections that we may need to have before our next meeting and before we have our final reading.
We've made the necessary administrative updates to those, so those are ready to go for first reading. It might take a little bit of editing from the board and this committee, but they're pretty well vetted once you see and log into this Google Docs.
Great. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. If not, I don't have anything else on the agenda unless I'm missing something, Mr. Pendleton. You guys handled 2 at 1, you and Mrs. Fido, to move this along pretty quickly.
Mrs. Feidel, do you have an update on the, oh my goodness, why am I drawing a blank?
The resolution agreement with the
Yes.
the Civil Rights Commission?
Yes.
Yes, I do. Mr. Alexander, if I may, the
ma'am.
board, thank you. And the board a couple weeks ago approved a resolution agreement with the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights. That was an agreement where we reached a settlement with the U.S. Department of Education over a complaint that was filed about how the district handled a particular student with a disability, particularly a nut allergy. And so as part of that settlement agreement, the district will be revising 2 of their board policies. There was no finding that the policies were, contrary to law or, were not proper policies, but the department had requested that we add some additional language and just to clarify things and to make it, very clear that, nut allergies and things like that, can be, a disability and could require, certain procedures to kick in or a 504 plan to be made to accommodate for that condition. So those revisions are being reviewed by staff right now. They will be sent to the Department of Education as part of the settlement agreement. And as soon as the Department of Education signs off on the revisions that are made, they will be then put before this committee so that they can be ushered through the board process. Now that could happen as soon as the middle of June, or they could approve it in August. We don't know how quickly they'll be able to move on reviewing our revisions, but I just wanted to put that out there for the board and this committee, especially to know that as soon as we get the okay from the Department of Education, we'll have to make sure that we move those policies through the process so that we can honor the resolution agreement that requires us to formally adopt those policies by a certain date.
Thank you, Ms. Fido, and I appreciate that. I apologize for overseeing that, but that's something we needed to talk about because you did mention, I believe, before that we had to have it done by a certain time frame and get it taken care of. Okay, Mr. Pendleton, did I miss anything else?
That's it.
Okay, Dr. James.
That's it.
Mrs. McKittrick?
No, I was just gonna say, wow, that was the fastest meeting ever.
Dr. Akbar?
No, not at all. But I agree. This is one
Shocking
of the-
given the track record of some of our meetings.
Well, Mr. Pendleton cracks a whip and makes sure hey, we stay online. I like that so we can handle the business and keep moving because everyone has busy schedules.
I like it.
We
Okay.
promise to fill it up more in the future. There's 4
Yeah.
volumes of policies coming.
Ms. McKittrick, we take advantage of this one right now because later we may not
For
be
sure.
saying it was one of the quick meetings. We'd be wanting the meeting to hurry up and end.
Did I miss
Oh.
the whole thing? Did you cancel? Oh, for heaven's sake.
That's
That's all right. I was changing Akron Public Schools and the arts forever. So I can handle it. Sorry,
right.
guys.
No, that's okay. Hey, it was quicker than we anticipated, so that's good. If we don't have any questions about anything else, I guess we can adjourn.
All right.
Perfect.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Great.
And thanks
Thank
everyone
you,
for
everyone. Enjoy the sunshine.
yeah.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.
All right, everyone have a good evening.
All right.